Welcome to Nonsense Season 3, Episode 27, our big story and our second show of the week. I'm Jeff Parker.
I'm Stu Little.
This time we're looking at heating up the renewable energy game. Up next.
Is any of it really renewable? I mean, the sun's going to burn out at some point anyway, right?
I don't think energy can either be created or destroyed.
Oh, I'm pretty sure you can create it. I'm no
How do you create it?
physicist, but I think he's in a box.
Okay.
Or is it more like a library? Like, can you only renew the energy twice and then you've got to return it?
I'm pretty sure that is how it works. This is going to be about geothermal energy, right?
Oh, that sounds delicious.
And we have, in California,
Yes.
geothermal heated hot springs.
Yes.
Have you been to one of these?
I have. Pants optional.
They're pretty amazing. They smell kind of stinky. They smell like sulfur or whatever.
But sulfur, especially after I'm there.
We have them in Palm Springs. We have them in Napa Valley.
We do.
We have them all up and down the state. There's one in Big Sur.
Murrieta. Is this a travel show now? Are we doing a travel?
Yes.
I think there's a pretty decent correlation between access to hot springs and geothermal energy and earthquakes. I think those things are loosely coupled because you've got plates sliding against each other.
Okay, the Earth's hidden secret.
Yep.
Powering tomorrow sustainably. Let's go.
I used to live out that way, deep in the Inland Empire.
As the global energy landscape rapidly shifts towards sustainable solutions, geothermal energy is finally having its moment in the sun, or rather deep beneath the earth. Often overshadowed by flashier renewables like solar and wind, this consistent always-on power source is now gaining significant traction, particularly with recent breakthroughs in enhanced geothermal systems promising to unlock vast, previously inaccessible reserves and make this earth-fired power a cost-competitive cornerstone of our clean energy future by as early as 2027.
Which is not far away. But I love that you describe this as not as flashy as solar and wind.
Those big flashy things like solar and wind that you hear about all the time.
Yeah, the Louis Vuitton solar panels that I'm putting up on my roof. The very flashy ones. This is super interesting. I certainly, until we started talking about this, didn't know a lot about the geothermal power generation. However, I have always wondered why, especially in the States and especially California, we don't do really any localized geothermal heating or cooling, which seems to be like literally under our noses.
You mean the shallow?
Shallow, yeah. Yeah, where like you can cool your house. I think if you go down a couple feet, like 4 or 5 feet, it's pretty consistent 50-something degrees.
10 feet if you're in a really, really cold zone.
Sure, but here in California, especially Southern California, you only need to go down 4 or 5 feet and you pretty much have a ground that is always going to be 50-something degrees.
It's a giant heat sink.
So it seems like, for just the cost of running a pump and not having to compress a Freon or a gas for your AC, you can cool your space much more effectively. And then even in places that get cold, that ground doesn't change. So you can still get your house temp up to about 60 degrees.
So now it's warm. Yeah, you're warm in the winter, you're cool in the summer.
And maybe you want to go farther than that, so you still have a heat pump or some other solution to heat it from 60 degrees up to 70 or 72 or whatever. But it's really fascinating to me that we just haven't embraced this at large. It seems like that's starting to happen, but it's always sort of surprised me. So this is a very interesting deeper dive in the fat version of that, right? Like power generation version of that.
If you go down deeply enough, but the problem in going down deeply enough that you can, for most of the world, not Iceland, places like Iceland, they're already using geothermal energy. It's a wonderful source of energy the Earth is just giving you for free. But there are companies, there is in particular one company that is trying to optimize the way we drill these holes so that we can get down deep enough to actually access geothermal energy. And they think they're going to have this cost effective by 2027.
The problem, what's slowing them down is they've got a whole bunch of Fraggles that are doing this, and the Fraggles have unionized. And that's slowing them down. It's just like, it's Fraggle Rock. They go straight, nothing.
Sure.
Okay, so this is extremely cool. Let's start though with what sort of global energy consumption looks like. I think it helps to know what sort of scale we're talking about here.
Okay.
As of 2022, we needed about 24,000 terawatt hours to power the planet. Right? So that's 24 petawatt hours of, I hate saying petawatt, but petawatt hours of energy, which as an aside is about 3 times the amount of power we consumed globally in 1981. That's kind of fascinating to me, right? That we're up 3x.
That's the entire globe put together. We as a globe, we are using as a globe, we are using 3 times the amount of electricity we're using in 1981.
Yep, and think about the forces you have at work here. You have things getting more efficient, like certainly light bulbs are about
way more efficient,
10% of the power consumption that you had in 81. We've gone from incandescents to LEDs, give or take.
Yeah, sure, for sure.
But you got a lot more people, and you've got a lot more people that have access to power. So, and have power needs. So it's very interesting that our power consumption has gone up 3x despite all of that. I would have thought it would have been less, to be honest.
Has our population gone up 3x? What's the per capita use of electricity like?
Oh, per capita usage has gone up. So right now we're at about 8.2 billion people, give or take, if you count them all. Mm-hmm. In 81, we were about 4.5. Almost doubled.
Yeah.
80% more people. So you would think that just in population growth alone, you would have almost 2x the power consumption, but you have things that are so much more efficient now than you had then. I think the real delta here is you have so many more people that have a living condition and access to power and access to capital to buy things that use electricity.
Sure.
The point here is 24,000 terawatt hours of power is about what we need globally. The vast majority of that, so last year, 2024, we generated about almost 31,000 terawatt hours of power globally. A third of that came from coal. Again, this is globally. A third of it came from coal. Mm-hmm. About a fifth of it or so came from natural gas. And then you get into some of the renewables, hydro, nuclear, wind, solar. But the big chunks are coal and natural gas. That's where most of our electricity comes from.
Sure. It's amazing how small the rest of it is.
Super small. About half of it is just coming from coal and natural gas. Yeah. Still, as of 2024, the concept here is like at some point that runs out, right? Everything runs out. I get that. The sun's going to melt, implode. We're all going to die. I understand all of these things, but you're going to run out of coal and natural gas before anything else. Before you run out of sun or waves or wind, you're going to run out of coal and natural gas. Mm-hmm. Those things are going to disappear. What folks have been looking at is how do you use these geothermal resources to make electricity? And this is fascinating because as it turns out, relatively speaking, you don't need to go down very deep to get a significant increase in temperature, which then allows you to, what a layman like me would call
push a turbine.
Boil water. Yeah, it's really a lot more complex than that, but effectively push a turbine, which is how a coal-fired plant works, right? A coal-fired plant, you're shoveling coal in to superheat effectively a water, some sort of liquid solution that then pushes a turbine. Most nuclear reactors work the same way, which is really fascinating to me. Like at the end of the day, you're just boiling water. That's how most of these systems work.
By the way, that's kind of a cool thing because people like Quaise, the company Quaise, which is a project that came out of MIT and is now a company that has funding, they are figuring out how to use the same generators, the same turbines that were being pushed by natural gas and coal, and now they want to be able to push them with geothermal energy.
So those guys are super bleeding edge. Let's come back to them in a second. Even before their technology has started to show promise, we sort of believed with existing technologies we could get to about 15% of global electricity demand by 2050. Mm-hmm. We actually think that's accelerating. We think that we can get more of that global energy demand out of geothermal because of some of these advanced technologies, which is really amazing.
And when you say advanced technologies, what you really mean is drilling.
Well, that's the hard part, right? So you need to get down really deep in most places. Now, some places are closer to these hot temperatures in the crust than others.
In California, you've got it all up and down the state. You've got access to it.
Not quite as close as places like Iceland. So Iceland, where you've got very hot water, very close to the surface. They've been, since the 70s, they've been leveraging geothermal power. Yeah. And this manifests itself in a couple ways. It's not just electricity, which is primarily what I wanted to talk about today. They also give you a hot water heating system. So as a homeowner or as a commercial building, you don't just get a electric feed from the city and a freshwater feed. You also get a hot water feed. It's a non-drinkable water, but it's superheated. Yeah. And it's incredible because now you can use that. You run your fresh water through it, through a little heat exchanger. You've got hot water. Yeah. You've got radiators in your home. You run the hot water through that. You've got heat. It's really incredible.
Do they make it so you can actually get to the liquid to actually try to drink it if you wanted to drink it? I would assume it would be very acidic.
Oh, I'm sure you could. You can also get to the electricity and put it across your heart. It doesn't mean you should.
Okay, but I mean, the way that if you're using the system the way it's meant to be used, it's a closed system. They're not giving you access to it.
No, I don't believe that to be true. I don't know what happens to the waste product. I don't think you return the waste product to them. I think you dump the waste product out in your sewer system. So effectively, I think you have access to it, but I don't know the answer to that.
Interesting.
I don't know why they would want it back. It would be a cooler version of what came. Yeah. It's not a closed system. They're getting this out of the earth, but I don't know the answer to that. What's cool about this is you have superheated water at your disposal and you pay something like, I think when I looked this up, it's about 2.5 cents a kilowatt hour for the effective same amount of energy that you're getting out of the hot water, which is amazing.
In New York, instead of pumping around hot water, which was harder to pump around, they would pump around steam and it would give you heat. Same idea.
Yeah, the steam was made by burning rats.
Is that right?
That's how that worked. They put rats into it. Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure. I'm not a New Yorkologist. Okay, so you dig a hole down, you get to the super hot water.
How deep deep do you have to dig down
that's
to get
the
to the
magic.
super hot water?
It depends on where you are and how hot you want to get said water. It seems like, I think the numbers are something like you get about a 25 degree centigrade increase in temperature for about every kilometer down you go. Like roughly speaking, it's something like that.
That's a big increase per kilometer, although a kilometer is a long way.
It seems like a really big increase, right?
Yeah.
For perspective, the deepest borehole we have that is man-made is around 12 kilometers deep. And this was dug over decades.
This is the Russian thing.
Yeah, the Russian, I think it's called the Kora borehole. They were doing this mainly as a research project, trying to figure out how deep they could get and things that would happen. Their last goal was to get to about 13 and a half kilometers. They got pretty close. They got to like 12.6 kilometers down, but it's incredibly difficult to get this deep.
It's very hard to get. The rock gets really, really hard down there.
Rock gets hard, and then you've got just all these problems that are with classic drilling where you're breaking drill bits and things are getting stuck, and then every time you do that, you've got to pull. Imagine pulling 12 kilometers of drill string out of the ground. Like, oh, this just sounds terrible.
It's forever, yeah.
And you basically pull that out like, I think it's something like, 30 meters at a time.
Also, you have to line the hole with some sort of concrete or something that's going to keep the hole from caving in on itself.
And some of these, so when you get into these very hot areas, I think this is like stuff that's north of 600, 700, 800 degrees centigrade. When you get into water that is that temperature, there's some really interesting things that happen. First of all, they call this supercritical liquid. So the water is indistinguishable between vapor and plasma, right? It's in this supercritical state. And typically it's very acidic, which is a challenge. They had this happen in Iceland where they accidentally hit like a magma pocket and they ended up with this supercritical water that I don't say they didn't know what to do with, but they couldn't handle. They ultimately had to seal the well.
Fill it in quick.
Yeah, they had to fill it in quick.
We've seen the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
We know there's the souls of Native Americans down there. Quick, plug it.
This is where you put all the ghosts from Ghostbusters 1 through 4. And then I also wonder, like, okay, so you pour in the concrete to make the plug. What happens when that plug gets shot out, right? When there's enough pressure that builds
shot
up
into the sky,
and all of a sudden, like all you've done is constipated part of the earth in Iceland, and it's just a matter of time until it gets some fiber in its diet, and then it's all over. Also, the thing to note about geothermal versus the other renewable sources is the utilization rate is typically over 75%, and we think even going up beyond that.
Explain that to me. What does that mean?
Yeah, so this is incredible. This is how often you can get power out of it. So if you've got a wind farm, for example, it's only your wind farm might be rated at let's just make up a number and say 10 megawatts. It's only generating 10 megawatts when it's being utilized, right? When the wind is blowing.
When the wind is full speed, yeah.
When the wind isn't blowing, it's either making something less than 100% of its utilization. So it varies. You sort of draw a line through it. Typically, wind power, we think, if it's deployed well, is around 30%.
Got it.
Solar is typically around 15%, right? Because the sun's only up for part of the day.
Yeah.
And then it depends on where the sun is in the sky when you're getting maximum utilization of the PV cells.
Sure.
Geothermal, you're north of 75%, right? We actually think
that's amazing.
We might be closer to 80-85% utilization. And these things, they believe these plants can run for about 25 years before having to be overhauled. That's sort of where we think we're going to end up on these. That's incredible. So now you're not comparing apples to apples when you look at the generation of a plant, the total potential generation compared to a solar PV or wind power, because the utilization is going to be 5 or 6x, which is kind of bananas.
Yeah.
So we think on these geothermal power generation units, you're looking at about 45 grams of carbon dioxide per kilowatt hour of electricity. That is less than 5% of a conventional coal-fired plant. So I appreciate coal-fired plant, you're using the worst carbon dioxide generation, but that's the majority of them, right? Most of our power is coming from those kinds of plants. And these things are doing 5% of that in terms of carbon dioxide emissions. So I had mentioned earlier that we were sniffing around, okay, if we do this and we sort of drill these wells, we think we can probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of 15% of our energy needs by 2050. That was sort of where we were at as of, say, up until a couple of years ago and maybe 10, 15 years previous to that.
We being the U.S. or the world?
The world has been sort of looking at this problem. So now, then this is very recent. So this is a paper written in December of 24, so about 6 months ago or so. We think that we can probably get next generation geothermal systems to generate electricity at around 140 times what our current needs are, which is insane.
That's an enormous amount of electricity.
140 times. Now you're thinking about like using thermal resources at depths below 8 kilometers. So that's going to give us a ton of power, but it's an area that's hard to get to.
And this change has happened because we've got new drilling technologies that allow us to not use drill bits, but rather just to evaporate the rock.
So you can get to 8 kilometers without new drilling technology. It's it's just really expensive. And then you got to make sure you're hitting a place that actually has what you need, specifically this supercritical water. And it's very interesting because you get a lot of alignment with oil and gas exploration. It's very similar. We've done a lot of work in that because we've had it sort of an immediate payoff, right? If you drill down and you find an oil pocket, like it's
you're good to go.
Bubbling tea, right? Black crude, bubbling Texas tea. Texas tea? Whatever grandma said on the drive to Beverly Hills. A combination of data science and machine learning combined with existing sort of gas and oil exploration has helped us figure out where to go. So that's made it better. And then you've got these advancements in technology on the drilling side. And I'm putting drilling in quotes here. Our listeners can't see that because in the past, you've got basically what is a drill bit, and then you hook it up to a drill string. You use some really clever contraptions to help this actually work, and you just keep going down. You keep adding drill string, you keep going down. It breaks, you got to pull it out.
He says drill string. What he means basically is big pipes.
Big pipes.
That they're connecting end to end to end to end.
It's really fascinating that works at all.
Right.
But they've figured out how to do that. So now you've got a handful of companies that have been looking at doing this in a very interesting way. And typically what they're doing is either melting the rock or vaporizing it.
Yeah.
And the one that Jeff was talking about earlier is vaporizing the rock. Again, this is one of those things where I had to read 3 times with my eyes to make sure that it said what it said, which was they are vaporizing the rock.
Oh, I'm going to put a link to a video in the show notes. You can actually see it done. You can actually see in the lab as they are vaporizing rock.
And the technology itself they're using to do it isn't really new. It's something we've had in labs for quite some time. They've used it in nuclear research. They've just sort of tweaked it and started applying it to rocks.
Yeah.
And you have these interesting byproducts that come out of it. So I think the way it works is you vaporize the rock. You've got a pressurized system behind the laser effectively, and that's pushing the rock vapor outside the laser because you don't want the rock vapor to...
It's blowing a gas down.
Blowing gas down. So basically turning into like a plasma. And then that rock vapor is coming up the outside of the bore shaft and making effectively a casing, right? It's like it's making the drill casing, which is really amazing. Whereas previously you're pumping in concrete to make a shell.
Yeah.
Now you've just got this rock material, which I don't think we know enough yet to know how durable that's going to be. But in theory, it's the same. It's been holding the water in for bajillions of years anyway. It's probably more durable than we mix up on the surface and try to pump down to 10 kilometers. So it's really fascinating. Where we are at currently before these advancements is you're looking at like give or take, you've got about 96,000 gigawatt hours. So that's 96 terawatt hours of electricity that we generate per year at about 67% capacity. So that's less than 1/3% of the world's generation. And there's a lot more of these things deployed. You've got them in a lot of countries that are very well positioned for this. So Indonesia, the Philippines, Turkey is another example. Kenya, Iceland, we talked about, El Salvador. There's more in the US than I thought. There's a decent amount of power generation in the US and people that have been actively talking about exploring this. But if you can get down deep enough with these lasers, it opens it up to just about everywhere. So you mentioned Quace earlier. These guys are sniffing around the roughly 4,200 coal plants around the world, of which already 1,000 of them are retired. So most of the operational coal plants are in China. The US has about 750 plants, of which 200 are operating. So you got about 500 that are decommissioned in the US. But their belief is that
they can reuse the gear.
They can reuse the gear. You already have the infrastructure there. You've already got the grid that is powered by the plant. You've got these turbines in the plant, and their belief is that they can lever what's there to effectively bring power back on the grid through these geothermal wells. So these guys believe that they can go to these existing power plants and that they can replace 95 to 100% of the coal they use by just doing these geothermal fields. And it's really nuts. The depth they need to get on this, it's real, but it's not unfathomable, pardon the pun. They think if they can get down to 20 kilometers, they can access super hot temperatures in more than 90% of the locations across the globe.
Yeah.
And you've got think about these coal power plants. It's basically a dead asset, right? You're going to sell it for scrap at best. Yeah.
And
I don't even know if the cost of dismantling it would outweigh what you get for the scrap, but maybe at some point you would. But now you can bring these things back online.
You just got to dig a really deep hole.
A really deep hole.
To do that, you have to have a drill bit that won't break, and that's what they've created.
Or you just pull a page out of Val Kilmer's book and point the laser into the ground, like real genius, and just go all the way down.
You vaporize the rock,
Again, this is just the power generation side. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that you can do a lot without having to go this deep. And I'm kind of surprised that we don't see more of that, as I mentioned earlier. But this, now you're getting into this supercritical fluids, this supercritical water that will effectively allow you to run a coal-powered plant at what we think will be less greenhouse gas emission that you currently see.
And more cost-effective once the hole is dug.
We don't know for sure, but we think less capital-intensive than deploying like a solar farm or a wind farm.
Yeah.
Especially when you get down to cost per generation unit over time. And also, like, so I love how we've titled this segment. It's been literally under our noses forever for all of mankind. You've got this giant ball that's emitting heat, and you just take off a little tiny bit of the heat, and as it turns out, we can power all the things that we do.
There have been uses in ancient times of geothermal energy.
In ancient times?
Yeah, Romans and indigenous peoples in North America used hot springs for bathing and heating and cooking.
Oh, I think you're talking about the
60s. Yeah, no, we're just using them a little bit more sophisticated way.
Hippies would bathe in it, yeah. Oh, no, of course. I mean, once you can convert that into electricity, that's kind of amazing, right? You're no longer restricted to just like warming things up and bathing.
Right. Now you can send electricity around the grid. The first one that I know of, the first modern geothermal power plant, was built in Laredo, Italy in 1904.
Oh, wow. That was the first geothermal power plant?
I believe so. And because they had simple, easy access. Now there's power plants in Iceland now, too. You know,
bunch of them.
They exist all over.
Right. But I love it. Some of the ones in Iceland, they'll have some of these that are cooled with like seawater, and they just raise the seawater to make it warm enough where they now have nearby land fish farms. They can now farm fish in Iceland that they otherwise couldn't because they wouldn't survive in the water temperature there. And I'm like, how awesome is that when your power plant's byproduct is used to grow fish with only the 2 eyes, not the 3 eyes like Blinky and the Simpsons, just the regular 2-eye fish. Pretty impressive. Actually, I don't know how many eyes they have. I'm assuming it's 2. Mm-hmm. Your output from these things is just warm water.
Well,
have a hot spring next to it.
Could be highly acidic water, but yes.
Oh yeah, not for people that you like, people that you don't like.
You might think about having a closed system where you're replacing some the water of these back down.
So some of these are closed systems where it's a cycle. So you've got the hot water that comes up. They use it much like a primary cooling stage of a nuclear reactor. Mm-hmm. The hot water comes up, you transfer the heat out of it, then you send it back down, and it goes in a loop. We're talking about going down 20 kilometers, 20,000 meters.
Going down 20 kilometers, yeah.
And how hard that is to do. Meanwhile, we are literally flying things into space that are millions of miles away. We can do that, but 20,000 meters down is hard. Also, for perspective, the diameter of the Earth is almost 13 million meters. Uh-huh. So we're talking about going 20,000 meters down and how inhospitable that area is. And just like, you haven't even scratched the surface of the planet.
Sure. Well, you've literally just scratched the surface of the planet. That's exactly what you've done.
That's what you've done. It's like barely made a gouge, a little tiny bit. And it's so hard for us. And it's like, well, just go a little deeper into the mantle. Just get the really hot, get the hot iron ore out.
It's easy to forget we live on the crust of molten liquid rock.
I know.
It is tons of heat that is available to us. We just have to find a way to get to it.
So you just got to get a little bit of that out.
The people at Quays have really done a remarkable job of figuring out how to get us down there in a way that you don't have the problems of drill bits breaking and all those other sorts of limitations.
They're just going to drop a laser in a hole. It's really incredible to me.
Yeah.
And it looks like, they're talking about doing, I think they've got tests scheduled for this year, out of lab tests, like in-field tests this year, which is going to be pretty incredible.
Oh, they think they'll have it cost effective by 2027. That number was not pulled out of the air. That's really the number they think where they will have it being cost effective.
That's amazing. So this could be an absolute game changer. The economics on this, they think, this is as of a couple years ago, they think that they can get in the neighborhood of $1,000 per meter and doing about 3.5 meters per hour.
Wow.
That's across the scale to get to about 20 kilometers. And roughly speaking, 500 degrees centigrade water.
It's about a megawatt to activate this device which liquefies the rock. It takes an enormous amount of electricity.
Yeah. So I guess that becomes part of the question is you're going to use a bunch of electricity to get down there. What's your recovery time? You just the wells can't be too far apart. You use the power from one well to power the next, and you just keep hopscotching your way across the country until you get there. That's pretty incredible, though. I just thinking about electricity usage to vaporize rock at $1,000 for a meter. Like, you could have told me that number was 2 orders of magnitude more, and I would have been like, oh yeah, that makes about sense.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you need
like $100,000 a meter. Yeah, sure. You're vaporizing rock.
You need like $24 million to dig a hole.
Yeah, exactly. Like a very deep hole.
That seems like not an unreachable number.
It does not seem like an unreachable number. That is correct. So this is pretty cool. So I guess at $1,000 per meter and you want to get down 20 kilometers, they think that's a $20 million hole.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Because previously we thought digging a hole at half of that would have cost about the same.
And in many cases, you'd get partway through the project and you run out of money and you'd abandon it like Russia.
Well, yeah. Or the drill bit would get locked up and stuck.
Well, that's why it's faster. This is a much faster way to do it because then you have no drill bit that's ever wearing out.
In theory, yeah. I have to believe there's going to be some cases that are going to be going to slow you down, but they're going to figure it out.
Pretty amazing.
I can't get over the idea of lowering this thing 20 kilometers into a hole and just it just digs itself and your output is rock vapor and it just sticks to the wall. Like, wait, what?
And you got you're making rock vapor and you're digging down and all it takes is a ton of electricity and a ton of patience.
There still has to be some extraction, right? Like, if you think about the physical matter, I don't think the deposits from the vapor are going to be any more dense than the rock that you're melting, that you're vaporizing.
Right.
So you've got to suck some out. There's going to be some sort of extraction system. If it's no more dense when it adheres to the wall, then you still have some has to exit. You have to get some out.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you would just be digging a hole and closing it up behind you. And how do you move vaporized rock kilometers without cooling? So I don't know if they've got some sort of collection mechanism that it collects upon and they pull that out like basically a sacrificial anode, and they just collect it sort of like you're making, what's this stuff called? The rock candy? You're just making rock candy, basically. Literal rock candy. Oh my God. They should totally call it that. They're literally making rock candy. They should then sell it. Like you'd own rock candy out of the borehole.
But you couldn't eat it. All right, we have to get out of here, but quickly before we do, have you seen or read anything good this last week?
Don't you tell me I can't eat it. If I want to eat the rock candy made out of the borehole, I'm going to eat the rock candy made out of the borehole.
Whatever you like.
Yeah, you're going to haze me for this, and I'm sure some percentage of our listeners are going to haze me for this. Mm-hmm. But I really liked the WWDC keynote video.
Shock, surprise.
From this week. I know. I'm really not a shill. I promise I'm not a shill.
I'm just glad I was sitting down when you told me.
The open... Okay, see, here it comes. The opening was great. They had Craig driving a F1 car on the roof of One Apple.
They're promoting a film they have coming out, F1. Yeah.
Promoting their film. Yeah, their film with the Brad Pitts. They had Tim Apple as the crew chief. There were some funny jokes in there if you're a Formula One or a car racing fan. My favorite was when Craig said he was in the lead and Tim was like, "You're the only one out there."
Sure.
It was great delivery. It was a lot of fun. There's been a lot of videos circulating this week of people poking fun at Apple's liquid glass design, calling it, Windows Vista.
Sure.
But my read on this, they are very funny. They're like, we saw this in Windows Vista 15 years ago.
That's very funny.
But my read on this is like, you can easily make this claim and say, but it's these little tiny itty bitty improvements and tweaks that I really think is part of the genius of Apple bringing this stuff to the masses and making it feel like it was always there, right? It's not even like this new thing.
You wouldn't want them to make big jumps in like something like AI where you can have, conversations with Siri and it can do lots of things. I don't know, man.
They're
get a new skin. That's great.
Their implementation of what they're showing with AI that I suspect is already going to be in the beta because we've already seen the precursor of a lot of this now that's live and not in beta. I think it's really going to be table stakes. I mean, they've got a ton of language expansion, which nobody I think gives them credit for. You're just like, oh, big deal. It's like, well, yeah, okay, but doing it in English, that's only one part of the audience. Like these guys have to think globally.
That's true of everybody who has AI.
Yeah, but not at the scale of Apple.
It's amazing to me when you ask a question of AI and you get back the answer and all the words are in one language.
I know, and not just like whatever the most efficient.
That's really amazing.
Yeah, totally. But it was trained on, mostly English. But there's a bunch of push into local AI. I think some of the tooling that they're implementing on this is going to be very helpful. I think it's going to be used, again, I think it's going to be table stakes. I think their local AI is going to be table stakes, and they're going to be the ones that bring it to just this sort of like expectation that you have.
Tensor chips.
Effectively, yeah.
Google has tensor chips. They're doing local AI stuff all over the place now.
Yeah, in the ecosystem?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tons of things happening on the phone now that's local. The phones that have the tensor chips. Pretty cool.
Is this going to be a Apple Google thing? Is this what we're going to do? Let's do this.
You said local AI was going to be table stakes, and Apple was the one who was going to bring that expectation.
Let's keep doing
I'm
this.
just
It'll
saying Google already has it. It's a really cool thing. It will be great when the iPhone gets it. It's very cool.
I will go on record as saying here that you'll have more people using it.
Well, sure, there are more Apple users.
In an effective manner, a faster uptake than you have with Google.
For sure. It's a much bigger audience.
But they also they improved the phone. And I was like, you haven't touched this thing in years. I don't really know how you make the phone better. And they seem to add some things to the phone that I think are going to be great.
Make it not ring.
I know that's the one feature I want. Is like just turn it off. Like just delete the app and then your phone doesn't ring anymore on your iPhone. Their smart call screening I thought was really good, where it does
like call screen,
sort of real time call screen. Their hold assist,
hold for me is
I don't
great.
know how that feature hasn't worked its way up the list sooner, but I think that's fantastic. Boilerplate stuff like making spam better in messages and having like a separate, I don't know who these people are. It goes into a separate list.
Goes into a spam folder.
Basically goes into a spam folder,
so to speak.
Effectively. Yeah. Then there's a new state where you can mark people as known or unknown without adding them to your contacts. And I thought that was, again, it's these small things. But all of this stuff seems to be, I shouldn't say all of it, but it does seem like a vast amount of it is exposed via API. And I do think that is probably one of the best things that I see them doing is so you can lever these things on the platform. And then one of the things that I want to highlight is their 360 content consumption for Vision OS. I'm very excited about that so that you can because I take some 360 content, typically you got to flatten it out. And there hasn't been a great mechanism to be able to consume it in its native form. And I see them doing this. I think everyone else is going to do it in short order because I don't say it's the future, but it's a great way to consume content. So
like MetaQuest?
And this is something that I know you've talked about and used quite a bit. I'll be curious to see. I'm assuming this is going to be a sort of cat and mouse game. So the AI powered scanning and like contextual awareness of a picture or of a video and a screenshot. I think that's really compelling. It's something I use now all the time for OCR and being able to take a screenshot of, someone who texts you something or you're on some, you're on some Instagram feed. There's a picture of someone who's doing a potluck on this day and you can screenshot it and automatically adds it to your calendar. That's really compelling. And I'm assuming everyone's going to get better on that across the board. So anyway, I was excited about it. We'll see when it comes out, and they've simplified their naming. So I got no complaints.
They simplified their naming?
They did. They're just going to use a year. Thank God. I don't have to remember it's WatchOS 12.
I can tell you from experience, you will enjoy many of these features a lot.
You clearly are not as amused with WWDC as I am. What have you seen?
I saw a documentary from Netflix called Inside the Mind of a Dog. Ever wonder what your furry best friend is really thinking? Beyond the tail wags and puppy eyes lies a complex world of emotions, intelligence, and instinct. Netflix's Inside the Mind of a Dog is a groundbreaking journey into canine cognition, revealing the science behind their loyalty, learning, and love. Cutting-edge research unveils the surprising secrets of our most cherished companions, including their ability to reliably smell things like COVID and cancers in humans. You'll never look at your dog the same way again. Inside the Mind of a Dog on Netflix now.
Is this like basically Up? Is it like the talking thing on the movie Up where the dog could effectively talk? Like they're effectively doing that?
They're not making the dog talk, although there is a rather clever thing where they've taught certain dogs to push buttons to say phrases, and the dog actually kind of can communicate using the push buttons.
Wow.
Very sweet.
Yeah, see, this is what concerns me is when they do this and you do get one and you put it on your dog. When I come over to record this show, he just looks at me and he's just going to be talking about how, why is the giant bacon-smelling piñata here? And why aren't you hitting it?
Break him open.
Break him open, exactly. Like when Barkley's bringing you a baseball bat in his mouth, you're going to know why.
Sure.
Yeah, that's my biggest concern. But
that is the episode.
Thank you for joining us for all this nonsense, a truly terrible podcast from our awful company. Visit us on the web at nonsense.productions. I'm Stu Little.
I'm Jeff Parker.
If you like this program, please follow, download, subscribe, and like at Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, AntennaPod, iHeartRadio, Spotify, my favorite Overcast, wherever you may get your podcast from.
This episode of Nonsense is brought to you by Magma, the Earth's original power. Industrial strength heat just below your feet. Future-proof, unshakably stable, and naturally abundant. That's Magma.
You're really afraid of the crust people? You don't want them coming up?
Pretend they don't exist.
Just pretend they're not here watching us. We'll be here every Tuesday and Thursday morning for more nonsense. Please join us.
Have we made it? Did we make it through our first non-explicit episode?
I don't know. I think so, but I also find that hard to believe. These shows are a lot harder to do without swearing.
Yeah.
I've just pretended there's been a nun standing behind me with a ruler the entire time.
Oh, that's your own little fantasy.
Everybody's got a kink.